Hello, and welcome back to At the Vanguard. I'm Christopher Lloyd Bratton-Zapala. If you're listening to this around the time it's released, we're standing right at the edge of a new year. It's that strange liminal stretch where we hear the world chanting, "New Year, New You." Social media floods with big goals, bold declarations, and plenty of advice, admonitions, and advertisements to capitalize on our yearning for reinvention. Around the dinner table, at the office, hanging out with friends, everyone wants to know what resolutions we've made. And if that kind of thing genuinely works for you, that's great. I am not here to take it away. But if you've ever felt exhausted or disillusioned by that wave of pressure to somehow prove that you're keeping pace with the most ambitious among us, if you've ever felt like January shows up with a clipboard and a whistle, demanding answers you're not ready to give, you're in good company. And today, I'm going to propose a new way to approach the new year. This episode is not about resolutions or about fixing yourself. And it's definitely not about pretending that significant change is always fast or easy. Instead, I want to offer something calmer, more realistic, and ironically, more effective. A way of thinking about the year ahead that respects how growth actually works most of the time. Because real change doesn't usually come from dramatic promises we make once a year. It comes from how we live ordinary days, what we pay attention to, what we return to, and what we keep investing in over time. That's true in art, it's true in work, it's true in relationships, and it's true in how we shape our life. You don't have to be a creative professional to live artistically. Anything can be done with care, intention, and craft. And that's the spirit I want to bring into this conversation. So today, I'm going to share a simple framework for the year ahead. Not a checklist or a mandate, just a way to orient yourself, one that holds the past, the present, and the future without collapsing into any one of them. If nothing else, my hope is that you finish this episode feeling a little steadier, a little clearer, and more energized about what's ahead. So, let's talk about how to begin, not dramatically, but deliberately. One of the reasons the new year can feel so uncomfortable or meaningless for some of us is that we're handed a very skewed story about how change is supposed to work. It goes something like this. You wake up on January 1st, feel wildly motivated, make a few big declarations, and then somehow everything just clicks. You implement your resolutions with unwavering commitment. By next January, your life has changed, you've become a better version of yourself, and you wash, rinse, repeat, resolving your way once a year to the highest heights of achievement and self-actualization. If that's been your experience, congratulations, you're in a very small club. For most of us, that model doesn't just fail, it actually makes things worse. Because when change doesn't happen quickly or cleanly, we assume the problem must be us. We've failed, yet again, to follow through with our resolutions. It's no wonder so many become disillusioned with the whole prospect, to the point where we just stop making resolutions altogether. Rarely do we stop to say, wait a second, look at what actually happened this year. We don't take inventory of what we learned, how we adapted, or the ways we already stretched and grew, even without a January 1st resolution. Instead, we fast forward straight to what's missing, what we didn't do, the vision we didn't realize. That's how people end up feeling behind, even when they're not. Another thing that gets tangled up this time of year is urgency. January has a way of making everything feel like it needs to be decided immediately, who you're becoming, what you're doing next, what you should have figured out by now. But urgency is not the same thing as effectiveness. Real change tends to be quieter and subtler than we expect. It shows up in repeated choices, not dramatic gestures. in systems that support us on ordinary days, not in bursts of motivation fueled by comparison or guilt. And comparison? Well, the new year is basically the Super Bowl of comparison. It's so easy nowadays to look around and feel like everyone else has a plan, a word for the year, and a perfectly curated path forward. And even though intellectually we know we're only ever seeing a sliver of the story, it still erodes our confidence. We know we're not seeing the doubts, the detours, the slow recalibrations that are happening behind the TikTok scenes and that actually make a life work. But it still seeps into our subconscious and deflates our sense of self-worth. So before we rush into the future, it's worth pausing long enough to absorb this truth. Not to judge where you are, but to see it clearly. Because maybe if we start from honesty instead of pressure, the year ahead won't feel like an exam we're destined to fail. Maybe it'll start feeling like what it truly is, an opportunity. So here's the new framework I'm presenting to you today, an alternative way to think about the new year. It's something that takes advantage of the heightened motivation we naturally feel as we turn the calendar page, but that avoids all the hype and disappointment of traditional resolutions. This new approach has 3 parts: honor, cherish, and invest. Let's start with honor. Before we get into talking about the year ahead, there's something we almost always skip, and it matters more than I think we realize. We don't give the past year its due. Most of us are surprisingly bad at this. We rush right past what we've already lived through and head straight for the list of things we didn't do, haven't figured out yet, or should have accomplished by now. This creates a strange illusion that nothing happened, that we're stuck, that we somehow failed the year. But that's never true. No one makes it through an entire year unchanged. Even a year that looks messy or unfinished from the outside, there's still real work happening within you. You're adapting, you're learning, you're recalibrating, often in ways that only make sense with hindsight. And along with that illusion often comes self-blame, a quiet tally of missteps, missed chances, moments we replay and judge more harshly than we ever would for someone else. Honoring the past means loosening that grip. It means recognizing that growth is not a clean process, and it was never supposed to be. Mistakes aren't evidence that you failed the year. They're evidence that you were in it. To honor the past doesn't mean glorifying it, and it definitely doesn't mean getting stuck there. It just means being fair. It means acknowledging what you carried, what you navigated, what you learned, sometimes the hard way. It means recognizing effort that didn't come with applause, decisions that didn't look impressive but were necessary, moments where simply continuing was an achievement. We tend to only honor outcomes, but those are momentary and represent a mere fraction of our journey. Most of life is shaped by process, not product. I really love the poem Ithaca by Konstantin Cavafy because it reminds us that the journey isn't just a means to an end. The road itself changes us. And even when we arrive somewhere we once longed for, life doesn't stop. We don't unpack and stay forever. We take a breath, and then eventually we set sail again. Honoring the past is about harvesting the journey we've already taken, acknowledging what it taught us, and letting it inform how we move forward. Because when we don't honor what we've already lived, the future feels heavier and more pressurized than it needs to be. Everything hinges on what happens next. But when we do honor our past growth and success, something shifts. We remember that we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from experience. No achievement is too small. And your past is something no one can ever take from you. You get to decide what to do with it. So, the first step of this new year reframe is to honor your past. Forgive yourself for any missteps. To err is human. Know that, as Alan Watts said, you're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And then take deliberate time to recognize and celebrate your wins, even if it's just having gotten up and done your best every day for a year. Once you've taken the time to honor what you've already experienced and accomplished, the next question is this: where are you now? Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be by now, just where you are. Part 2 is cherish the present. This doesn't mean being complacent, and it doesn't mean telling yourself everything is fine if it isn't. Cherishing begins with attention and acceptance. Attention is really seeing your life as it is right now. And acceptance is allowing that reality to be what it is without immediately trying to fight it, fix it, or judge it. It means noticing the life you're already inside of. Your relationships, your work, your health, your energy, your inner state, and letting yourself acknowledge it honestly without turning every observation into a problem to solve or a verdict about who you are. One idea I got from Sam Harris, which has stayed with me for a long time, is the reminder that everything in our lives will have its last time. The last time listening to a favorite song, the last time picking up your child, the last conversation with a relative. We almost never know when those moments are happening, which means to live without regret, we have to embrace these experiences with presence and appreciation while they're still here. Another important reframe here is how we relate to difficulty. Struggle doesn't automatically mean something is wrong. It simply means you're engaged with something significant. Acceptance allows you to stop treating challenge as a personal failure and start seeing it as part of a meaningful life. Growth needs resistance. Learning needs uncertainty. Meaning needs something at stake. So, cherishing the present also means accepting that not everything is smooth and not requiring it to be. It means listening to your nervous system instead of overriding it, noticing what consistently drains you and what reliably nourishes you, refining how you work, how you rest, how you relate, not because you're broken, but because you're paying attention. This is where an artistic approach to life really helps. Not art as a product, but art as practice. Working with the material that's actually in front of you, respecting the medium, making adjustments based on what's real, not what you wish were there instead. Attention tells you where you are and leads to intentional presence. Acceptance lets you stay long enough to learn from it and appreciate it. And together, they give you the clarity you need to decide what's actually worth investing in next. Once you've honored the past and cherished the present, the future won't feel so abstract or looming. It becomes something you can actually work with, a continuation of a life already underway, well-lived, and full of resources. Time for part 3, invest. Because whether we're conscious of it or not, we're always investing, every day. We invest our time, our attention, our energy, our care. And just like with money, those investments compound. Small choices, repeated consistently, add up. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, but powerfully over time. And the opposite is true too. When our energy is scattered, impulsive, or constantly redirected by urgency and distraction, we don't get much of a return. A sober approach to the future isn't about making one big bet on a bold resolution. It's about first asking, where am I placing my resources again and again? And then, is that investment aligned with the person I'm trying to become? This is why, as James Clear teaches in his book Atomic Habits, systems matter more than goals. Goals are destinations. Systems are what you do on the way there. Goals can be motivating, but systems are what actually shape you. They're where your values either show up or don't. And they're where your life actually happens. Goals are fleeting, momentary. Systems are how you live day to day. When I look at people I admire, artists, educators, builders, painters, leaders, the common thread is almost never raw talent or brilliance. It's tenacity. They keep showing up. They keep adjusting. They keep coming back. That's true in creative work, but it's also true in life. There's a powerful parallel here with meditation. The practice isn't staying perfectly focused. It's noticing when you've wandered and returning again and again and again. That returning to your path is the practice. The same thing applies to your year. You don't need perfect consistency. You need durable consistency. You don't need to invest flawlessly. You need to invest wisely. One question I frequently ask myself is this: what would my future self thank me for doing today? Not next year, not someday, today. That question cuts through fantasy and procrastination and a bias toward present gratification. It turns the future into a relationship, one built on trust, patience, and care. To invest in the year ahead isn't to demand certainty or control. It's to place your efforts deliberately and to protect what matters, to trust that small, wise investments made consistently really do add up. That's how lives really change, quietly, reliably, over time. As this new year begins, let's not feel like we're standing at a starting line with a stopwatch running. We're not late, we're not behind, and we're not required to reinvent ourselves in order for this year to count. What I hope you take from this is something more reasonable, actionable, and sustainable. First, before you look into the future or get consumed by the present, take some time to honor what you've already lived. Give yourself credit for the ground you've covered, the lessons you've learned, and the ways you've changed, even when it didn't look impressive from the outside, and even when it wasn't part of your plan. Next, cherish where you are and what you have right now. Turn your attention toward what's present. Cultivate acceptance for what is. Embrace it. Allow yourself even to love it, even the parts that are flawed or incomplete. Presence isn't about perfection. It's about being awake and available to what's here now. And then invest, not dramatically and not all at once, but deliberately, wisely. Invest your time, your energy, your care, where they'll matter most. Choose systems over fantasies, tenacity over intensity, small, wise choices over grand declarations. Make your future self proud. If you drift, just come back. If you stumble, just reset. And if you lose momentum, just begin again. That's not failure. That's how change actually works. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. Every moment, not just January 1st, provides an opportunity to start anew. As we step into this year, my wish is that we do it with clarity, patience, and confidence. We don't have to have everything figured out, or take giant leaps, or wait until we feel ready. We just have to take the first step. Honor what's been, cherish what is, invest in what's becoming. That's more than enough to begin. Happy New Year. Until next time.